Hello, welcome to the first podcast from Pop Culture Maniacs. I'm your host, Kieran Freemantle, and joining me today is our TV editor, Henegan. Today we will be speaking about the upcoming streaming wars and the release of Mulan onto Disney+. So, hello, Jean. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Kieran. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just keeping busy as much as you can in this these circumstances. So, obviously, as I said, we will start off with the streaming wars. So, I wrote an article on for our website about my thoughts on it. So, depending on the platform, there will be a link below for you. So, as you know, with streaming, it's obviously big business, and everyone and their mothers is trying to get in on the act. We've got our big players. Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Max. And as an experiment, I looked up what was available on Amazon as add-ons. You've got, this is just a sample, Hallmark, Stars Play, Arrow, MGM, Funimation, BFI, Shudder, and Movie, which will have much more specialized channels. And the big question is streaming on the edge of a crunch?
I definitely think that streaming could be in danger. The number one question I get asked by people is when they're going to cut their cable package, what streaming services they should pick up. And, there's just so many out there that at some point they're going to start pushing each other out of the entire mainstream. And it's going to be a battle to see who has the best original content, who has the best original movies, and who has the best back catalog. And I think when it comes down to it, it's going to turn into a battle between the major studios more so than on the smaller studios that are currently out there. And it's going to kind of, I think, turn into what we already have with the current situation with movie studios. I think that's kind of where we're headed.
I pretty much agree with you. Debate over. Of course not. Of course not. I wrote down in my article. I wrote that I pretty much think Netflix, Amazon are safe because they've been in the game long enough. Disney Plus will because they've got both brand loyalty and the massive amount of content and properties, and people like HBO will because they've got a parent company, while someone like Apple, since recently they've been called the first company to make over $2 trillion. I think they can afford it even if it's a loss maker at the moment.
I think the question too it's going to come down to is originals, is who's going to be able to create the best content. And I think right now, with Amazon, just around the TV side of things, it's definitely not a name that has recognition even here in the States. When you say, oh, that show's on Amazon, people look at you crazy. Like, Amazon has a TV service, and it's still, despite being Amazon, it's still trying to fight for that foothold that Netflix, I think, really is going to be just fine as a result.
Yeah,
but
exactly. The big threat for Netflix is they do carry a lot of debt, but because their model is they need to keep expanding their subscriber base, and then there's going to be a point where they can't expand it much further. And obviously, obviously, as I said, lots of people love Netflix. I think there will be an outcry if it was ever really in danger.
And Netflix has done something very interesting that a lot of the other non-major studio-based streaming sites have, which is really create a global brand. Amazon is not really available too far around the world. Hulu absolutely isn't available outside of
Hulu's not available in the UK.
And Disney Plus is a slow rollout still going internationally.
Yeah.
But Netflix already has such a huge subscriber base internationally, as well as massive international productions, that I think they've really expanded the way a lot of these streaming sites are going to have to start doing if they want to stay relevant.
Exactly, because as I say, within my family, we all love Netflix. I don't think there'll be any intention of getting rid of it anytime soon. Obviously, with as you said, Netflix, they tend to be great at producing their own content and generally buying a lot of content, because obviously you can think of lots of shows that might have been shown in one country and then they end up buying the rights to show it internationally. Like Derry Girls is a good example. It's shown on Channel 4 and in the UK and Ireland. Internationally, it's on Netflix. And
yeah, absolutely. That's where everybody I know here in the States found it and fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And even something like Great British Bake Off, everyone here in the States was desperate for more seasons, and we finally get them to air a few days after they air in the UK on Netflix here, which is a huge plus for getting that kind of content out internationally.
Exactly. And so there is also an interesting issue in streaming, because there is pretty much a war between HBO Max and Roku and Amazon, because basically HBO is unavailable on the Roku stick or the Amazon Fire Stick, and it comes down to money, because it's over how much of a share they want. And it's also, that's another issue with streaming, is a lot of these companies want our data on our viewing habits, so partly to recommend, but also what they can make for us, so find out what's popular.
And personally, with the whole HBO Max situation, I had to go through a number of emails with my parents explaining why they couldn't watch HBO on their Roku anymore. And personally, I found I've been watching less HBO now that I can't watch it on my TV, because it's not on my Sony TV, it's not on my Roku stick. So now I have to go on my computer and my laptop and watch HBO Max if I want to watch it. So it's such a hassle that even though it's part of our HBO subscription, so we don't actually pay extra for it, we're not technically subscribers, it's become something that I don't routinely seek out and look to watch. I'm much more likely to watch since on my Roku, since it's all right there. And I think, I get, obviously, like you said, it's all about making money, and they want to control their content, control the access, make sure that people who want to have access through a Roku or a Fire, that those companies have to pay an extra licensing fee to get it. But I think in the end, it's going to hurt the streaming service if it's not there and not available with your Netflix and your Hulu and your Amazon and a quick click on your TV. People are going to forget it exists, and that could really backfire, I think, ultimately down the line. And similarly with like Apple Plus, like you can't get that on a Roku, and most people don't even know it exists as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Apple Plus on my new computer, and I haven't actually watched anything yet, even though there are a few things that do take my interest, like Central Park and Greyhound. But we do raise the point about convenience, because I think that was one, because on another article I wrote, it was about physical media, because I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I still love my DVDs and Blu-rays. Obviously, Netflix, when Netflix launched and grew big, like in the sort of 2013 onwards in the UK, it was convenient. They had so much content available, and I think you could pretty much had most things available to you if you had Netflix and Amazon or Hulu. Now it's so much more fractured that it is, you're like searching. We end up searching various streaming apps just to find something, if you want to find something specific to watch.
I find myself Googling, like, where can I watch this TV show? Where can I watch this movie? Just to like get an idea of what I should even be looking at to search for it.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I think there have been quite a few failures in the streaming wars already because the service Filmstruck that sounded quite an interesting one with lots of world cinema, because that folded within 2 years because the Criterion Collection ended up pulling out, and so they ended up losing most of their content.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big hurdle on the horizon too. Just the fighting over the existing content. I mean, on the TV side of things, Netflix had Friends for so long, and for the young millennials and the Gen Z crowd, that's where they discovered what Friends was. And now it's on HBO Max, and losing access to that, everyone predicted it was going to be a huge problem for Netflix down the line. But I mean, honestly, I think we both agree that Netflix is going to be just fine without Friends.
Yeah,
but that was considered the staple of the HBO Max streaming service. That and getting Harry Potter were like the two big wins for them. But at the same time, like I don't really see people seeking out HBO Max just to get their fix of Friends or their Harry Potter fix.
I was going to say, if you're a big enough fan of those shows anyway, you probably already own them on physical media or digital purchase anyway.
Right, absolutely. That's my biggest piece of advice to people is always just buy. If you love the TV show, buy the whole series. If you love the movie, just buy it, because then you won't have to worry if it disappears from streaming in the future.
Yeah, and this is actually going to raise a point in when we talk about Mulan and Disney Plus a bit later. The other major service, which hasn't folded yet, but give it a year, and I think it will be, is Quibi, the one that Jeffrey Katzenberg founded, where you can watch quick bits on your phone, and they obviously spent a lot getting some big name actors and buying content for it. So they got like was it Anna Kendrick, Sophie Turner, Liam Hemsworth, Natalie Emmanuel.
I got that hard remake of the Princess Bride quarantine remake.
I don't think. Yeah, I think it's hard to find anyone that's actually used it, and I love that the excuse they came up for the failure is that the pandemic and lockdown affected its business when like Netflix and Disney Plus, they got more subscribers because of the pandemic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Quibi's interesting because you get people who don't really have a background in short form, or I mean, Katzenberg is of course brilliant, but he's not somebody to lead a new tech revolution in the short form video.
No, he's a producer. He's the guy you get to lead your actual your actual content or your projects, not the guy to lead. Certainly not the guy to lead your tech, as you say, your tech rev.
And was it Quibi like you could only watch it on a certain, like, I don't think you couldn't watch it landscape on your phone. You had to like you couldn't turn the screen or something. I heard people complaining about that, and that was enough to make people stop.
Admittedly, I thought it was because you could watch it either landscape or portraits, but
okay.
But yeah, basically, not many people use it. So give it a year, it's gone. I think with the streaming wars, it's also led to sort of like a big, as you say, with content, it's led to a big arms race for everyone to make your big films, your big TV shows. It is at the moment a golden age if you're if you're a producer or showrunner or whatever, because like and you see so many big name actors in shows now. You've got obviously like Henry Cavill in The Witcher, Chris Evans in Defending Jacob, loads. But obviously, if there's a streaming service crunch, the risk of that is it's going to lead this gold rush is going to end up collapsing as well, and there won't be nowhere near as much content or investment in TV and film.
Yeah, I mean, TV critics always complain about that there's just too much to watch, and there absolutely is too much to watch. But what we're starting to see now, a trend particularly with all these big name actors picking up TV roles, is that the quality of the shows has gone from, you know, having a handful of really like elite shows like a Breaking Bad or a Mad Men to just having a lot of pretty good shows with really big names in them. And so it's harder for us to kind of write recommendation articles or to, you know, heap praise on shows because there's not a lot that really kind of stand out among the pack. A lot of them are just like, it's good. You know, you might enjoy watching it, but it's not. There hasn't been a lot of really special TV
Yeah,
that's come out of this push for all the different streaming services and still network and cable and you know, HBO, Showtime, and all of that as well, just pushing TV out.
exactly. And as well, with a lot of new shows, they are trying to follow trends. So take for it with Game of Thrones, everyone now wants to make their own Game of Thrones. So Amazon are spending set to spend billions on a Lord of the Rings show, and they've got the rights for the Wheel of Time. Obviously, we already mentioned The Witcher on Netflix, and they're planning on making things like The Last Airbenders. And this is sort of like an issue I would say with Hollywood. They're always, when they find success in one thing, everyone tries to copy it, collapses.
Yep.
I was going to remember like Avatar did well at cinema, made over $2 billion. 3D was the next big thing. Now you barely see any films made in 3D. Avengers did well. Everyone wanted to make a cinematic universe. And God, there have been so many failures in that front.
I think DC's finally learned its lesson that they need to create a cinematic universe to at least to keep people interested.
Yeah.
So who knows if that'll work, but
Yes, but at least they're starting to make some good one-off films as well now. So they're at least forcing Marvel, keeping Marvel on their toes now. But I think, obviously, going off track a little bit, I think DC were one of the few that actually had stood a chance of being a cinematic universe. Other things like the Dark universe with like the Mummy and the Invisible Man and all that.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the Invisible Man that had nothing to do with the universe, which is nice.
As you say, they had nothing to do. They're not even bothering trying to do any world building or trying to connect it to any other film.
It's the joy of Blumhouse.
Yeah. So, and I would say that if you have a frequent YouTube as well, you notice that a lot of YouTube channels get sponsored by people like NordVPN, and their major selling point is they try and say, VPN, this VPN, set your location to wherever, and you can watch. So you can try and as a way to subvert, say, your regional locks. Say something like Star Trek Discovery is it's obviously it's on CBS All Access in the United States, but internationally, or most countries, it's on Netflix, and say that's trying to be the selling point. But I think a lot of streaming services are now trying to stop that that little workaround.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I mean, to be fair though, I've noticed something really cool in the last couple months with the whole quarantine. Is a lot of international shows are putting programming up on YouTube to make it more accessible, which has been a nice find for someone like me who, you know, enjoys checking out what's going on in international scale. So that's been fun.
Good. I would say the other risk of the big boom in streaming is it's actually led to increase in piracy. Like one of my a meme I like, it's like a cartoon figure. This streaming service is pretty good. I don't need you anymore. And he puts his pirate hat in his drawer, and he goes 2019 all the streaming service. Grabs his pirate hat. Hello, old friend. And yeah, because they're taking The Mandalorian because of Disney's decision to roll out Disney Plus slowly internationally. a lot of people outside of America and Canada looked for other methods to watch The Mandalorian. With this big barrier of all these various pricing and with streaming, it has a ironic, because when the Netflix first launched, it pretty much killed piracy for a while, or at least made it less prevalent, and now it's going right back up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And speaking as an American on that, with all the upcoming film releases, I suspect there's going to be a huge spike in the U.S. in pirating something like Tenet, because when it drops in a couple weeks, I don't know how many movie theaters here are even going to be open, um, and I don't know how many people are really going to feel safe even going to the movie theater. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of pirating of something like Tenet when it comes out.
And there's also like with films that if they are released digitally, it's going to if anyone's a good enough computer whiz, they'll be able to rip the digital files and put it straight onto a illegitimate site anyway. So it's not looking good. And I said, there's so many shows that I think people would watch, but everyone's got most people have a fine amount of time and money, so they are probably, and I have noticed that some shows don't even get released on DVD anymore, so sometimes piracy may end up being your only option, like Catch 22, the series that was made for Hulu. Look, you can get, even it was shown in the UK, and yet you certainly can't buy it physically, and you can't buy it on digital platforms either. So it's sort of like, I'm sort of the view, there's no point. You may as well just release it on physical, or at least on digital, so everyone has a chance to view it, because otherwise you're just forcing people to piracy.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised, considering Hulu is basically owned by Disney now, that they don't want to release something like that. Although what we have seen with Disney is they've been very stingy of late with releasing Fox films, Fox produced television on DVD and digital. So that's part of it.
And well, Disney famously had the Disney Vault, so it forced up prices for a lot of home media. So obviously, so DVDs of a lot of films ended up being very expensive because they were only available for a limited time. And recently, Disney have said that they're not going to bother releasing 4K films of most of their live action films, and pretty much stopped it on all Fox films as well. So you end up, and obviously a lot of people would love to have something like a 4K version of the Alien franchise.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, especially Aliens. I love Aliens. And I think one way the market can go is because in America, I know that Disney, they have that special package where you get Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN all rolled into one. And I wouldn't be surprised to say certainly within the UK, there have been special offers. So if you go on O2, you can get 6 months of Disney Plus for free, or like Virgin Media, like one of our biggest cable providers, they did have a special offer for a time where you got a discount on Amazon Prime if you ordered with them. And I wouldn't be. I remember seeing a video on YouTube of someone saying like that. Their argument was that streaming wasn't going to be a cannibalization. It was just going to replace cable. So that could be a way that service providers and cable providers might work. They might just say, "Buy us, you can get Netflix, HBO, or whatever." And obviously, the advantage of streaming is you choose when you want to watch it. You don't have to wait. you don't have to wait for a show to come out.
Yeah, the biggest knock I've heard from people who are cutting the cord, well, there's two really. It's the first is that there's some cable channels that aren't currently aligned here in the States with a streaming service. So something like AMC, which had Mad Men and Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and those shows, you can't actually align that to watch real time. So if I wanted to watch the final season of Better Call Saul, I have to have the AMC cable channel or a cable subscription of some kind to watch it online. It's not going to be on Netflix for till a year after it airs. And so that's been a stumbling block for some people. And I think eventually, they're all going to pick a side, or someone's going to buy each major cable channel and roll it out into a streaming package. And on the other side, it's live sports, which I think is the real stumbling block for people.
I was actually, yes, because I was going to raise that because I remember discussing it with my brother. I asked if he thought that Netflix would go into sports, and he believes they won't. I think most sport on streaming is quite limited. You get in the UK, you get a few Premiership matches a year, and they've got the US Open, but that's about it.
Yeah, here it's a bit of a mess. With all the different professional sports leagues, and even individual teams have their own networks. Like my baseball team here, the Chicago Cubs, just rolled out its own personal network. The New York Yankees have their own network in New York. So if your cable company or your particular streaming app doesn't carry that network, and here Comcast was like the big cable company in the Chicago area that hadn't made a deal with the Cubs network. And thankfully, before they started playing last month, they managed to make the deal, but it took about a year for them to even get a deal done. And if you have to cobble together, 6 different streaming networks to watch all of your sports teams, it's going to be just expensive as having that cable package and watching them on TV. So that's going to be an interesting point moving forward to see, ESPN covers a lot of sports here. It doesn't cover all the sports. It covers certain select ones. And our regular networks, our NBC, our CBS, they'll cover different sports as well through their contracts with different leagues. So there's a lot you have to put together here in the States to even make a coherent sports package. So I think that is going to be something to watch moving forward with streaming.
I don't know, quite lucky then I'm in the UK because we've got we essentially got Sky Sports, BT Sports, and we got a few things that are called the crown jewels, so they have to be shown on regular TV. So things like World Cup, European Championships, Rugby World Cup, that's all, Olympics. So yeah, so it is a lot simpler over here.
You're very lucky. On any given Saturday watching college football here, I'll have like 6 different channels going just to catch enough games.
Sort of like picture it like a Beautiful Mind situation where you got like 6 TVs on at the same time and trying to. Yeah, I see.
Oh yeah, and computers with all the different stuff going. Oh yeah, it's a lot.
One more thing before we move on to our discussion about Mulan. It's obviously, I'm not sure what the model is like in America, but in UK we also have obviously quite a lot of free to air channels, and they have their own catch up services. So BBC have a very comprehensive iPlayer, which they leave some shows up for like 6 months to a year. Can catch some films that they showed recently, and and obviously I think a lot of people generally do use it. I use it quite a lot. I'm catching up on Doctor Who at the moment, and Channel 4, they're actually really good on their service because they pretty much all their original content's available, and it is obviously it's all free to air. All you have to do is obviously watch the ads, and that could be a model that other providers could use.
Yeah, we have something similar. We have like our main 5 channels: CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, and the CW. And each one of them has, its own streaming service. Fox and ABC are obviously on Hulu since they're both owned by Disney now. NBC just launched Peacock, which is really weird, and nobody can quite figure out what it is because it has original content and regular NBC content, but it's also free, but it has ads, and you can subscribe to get less ads, and it's weird. CBS has CBS All Access, but it also allows you to watch regular CBS programs with commercials on their website. And the CW has had its own streaming service for a while now, and it's similar. You can get a subscription for no ads, or you can just watch it regularly with ads.
So, obviously, I think with this streaming war, I think it's going to take a few years before we finally it all settles down. We find out who the winners and losers are. It's because, but it's going to be carnage.
Just wait until Disney's bought everybody except for Netflix, and then see what happens.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite memes is of it's like a fascist dystopia with a Mickey statue and a police officers dressed in Mickey Mouse masks, and they're like everyone rioting. Hail Mickey!
I would not be surprised if that's how it all ends.
Yeah, so since we moves on to Disney, we can talk about the new Disney's, as I called it, Disney's Dangerous Experiment, releasing Mulan on Disney Plus. So to just give everyone, most of our listeners already are aware that they are charging $30 to watch it early on this Disney Plus, or in my homeland, $28.99. So, and shall we say the film? Certainly, when I watch the film community on Twitter, I think their reaction can be described as peeved off.
I can certainly see that. Personally, I was intrigued by the whole experiment of Mulan. Up front, I do not like Disney's live action versions of their cartoons. I don't see the point other than a money grab. But this one's one where I was actually intrigued by what they were doing with it, because it seemed unique compared to, redoing The Lion King with better cartoon technology with some of the same voice cast. This seemed like a new take on the story that was going to be a little more true to the actual legend. So I was actually excited to go to the theater and watch it. And I'll admit, I'm probably going to buy it. I own my Disney Plus account, and I share it with several people, and we've all talked about chipping in money to watch it. Since the way they're rolling it out is better than what everyone initially thought it was going to be, which is you pay $30, you watch Mulan once, and that's it. But if you're paying $30 and everybody who has an account on your account can watch it, and you get it for as long as you have Disney Plus, or at least until they change the rules down the line, it's not such a horrible investment, particularly if you have tiny children who are desperate for new content. But I definitely understand film Twitter's disappointment with removing a film from theaters and the like, just to hopefully try to make some money, since nobody in America is going to be able to go to the movie theaters for a while. And
as we all know, America is the center of the world. No one else exists.
Exactly. That's the key point of this podcast, I think.
Yeah, so I think obviously Disney are in a bit of financial pressure at the moment because of lockdown. They've lost about $4 billion in a quarter. So because their parks can't open, and and obviously they can't release any films in theatres, and so that's all. They've lost a lot of revenue. Basically, Disney Plus is the one keeping everything up. I do have a lot of fears of this experiment, though, because for quite a few reasons. If Mulan turns out to be successful, what's stopping them from releasing other films this way is to just bypass theatres. And it's sort of like, seems like, so you're paying double in the sense you're having to pay for your monthly or yearly subscription to Disney Plus, then you add on like your big blockbuster films. And what's to say stop them from, say, taking away other films? Say, sure, you can watch The Mandalorian. That'll be an extra $10, please, or something like that. I think it could be a very slippery slope.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think really I think part of it's going to be how much things rebound globally, obviously with the pandemic. But I think a lot is going to be how this can be impacted in China.
Yeah.
Since that really is the moneymaker in the world of film these days. I don't even know if Disney Plus is available in China.
It isn't. So it's,
yeah. So I think this right now, business-wise, this is probably their best shot at getting all the markets, because Mulan should be a huge film in China.
Yeah, it will be. I would say, though, because of it, they're releasing Disney Plus they're releasing Mulan in countries that already have Disney Plus. So some countries have been quite vocal. Like the UK Cinema Association, they're saying like it's bad form from Disney. Other people within the UK have been a lot less polite with their language. And there was like a viral video on Twitter of a French theatre owner just smashing up his Mulan display because obviously obviously Mulan was meant to be one of the big films to sort of help kickstart the cinema again, along with Tenet. I also think there are quite a few ready-made excuses in case Mulan doesn't work because obviously the actress who stars in Mulan, she said some things which have been interpreted as pro-Chinese Communist Party, which we see will go down badly in the West. And they can obviously, there has been some anti-China hysteria because of COVID. So these got as ready-made excuses if it doesn't do so well.
Yeah, and then it's based on a cartoon that people already have, so they can just watch the cartoon, or they wanted to have the music and not the movie, that sort of argument as well.
Yeah, exactly. And on a broader point, I think no matter who wins the US election, relations between the West and China are going to be a lot more frosty because for quite a long time, Hollywood has been chasing the Chinese dragon. And obviously we saw lots of films with Chinese actors or having something or being set in China for whatever reason, like Transformers Age of Extinction decided to set themselves in Hong Kong for its final act just for the hell of it.
And yet filmed it in Chicago. I don't understand.
No, I remember seeing the honest trailer, and it's saying, leaving the Shears Tower in the background of Hong Kong. But yeah, it's and obviously it's going to be reciprocal. That I don't think China are going to be trying to get the Western market as much either, and there's going to be a lot less Chinese investment in Hollywood films.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be interesting to see how that shakes out down the road.
And also, I think Disney, with Disney Plus, it sort of reminds me of an episode of Family Guy where Lois's dad has a cure for cancer, but they don't release it to the public because why give someone let someone have a one-time cure when you can treat them for a lifetime? So like, why let people buy the film, buy their films once or TV shows once when you can make them pay for Disney Plus for a lifetime?
Exactly. Disney, I mean, I'm very interested to see how Disney weathers this pandemic. Obviously it will, since it owns half of all the media in the world.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued to see if they keep throwing the weight around like they have been. I know just here in the States, there are a lot of small independent theaters who wanted to have screens of something like Alien, and Disney wouldn't release the cut for them to use, or they charge them exorbitant fees or force them to agree to air Disney films in exchange. It was just crazy, crazy stories coming out about Disney just throwing their weight around and blocking Fox movies from airing.
That sort of goes back to my point about reintroducing the Disney vaults.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously Disney have that lovely on the outside have that lovely wholesome image of your family friend, provided you with all your favorite characters, when really it's like that South Park parody. Go out there and make me some goddamn money.
Yep. Yeah, and Disney World's the happiest place on earth, except for all the parents who hate it.
Oh, I was going to say, or when their advert of them saying that they're reopening in the middle of a pandemic, and someone again made a parody like, don't go, it's not safe.
It's still open. It's still open, despite Florida being a disaster zone. It's still open.
Who the hell wants to go to Disney or anywhere in this sort of climate?
I'm still scared to go to the grocery store some days. So, and Chicago's not awful in comparison to some areas in the United States, and it's still like, ugh.
I live in a fairly rural area, so it is a fairly small town. So but in the UK, it's more like the big cities like Leicester or Manchester that they've been the ones that have been suffering more recently. I think if any other company tried this move, I think they would have been called out for being scummy and money grubbing. But again, Disney have such brand loyalty that sort of like they can hit you and you say, thank you, can I have another?
Yeah, it's brand loyalty and just sheer financial power. People want their MCU stories, and they want their Disney cartoons, and they want their Pixar, and they want to see all that.
Yeah.
And so if there's any way they can get that, they're going to take it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if Mulan does well, who knows? In November, Black Widow might show up on Disney Plus, or the next Pixar film might show up on Disney Plus.
And they're essentially forcing people to get Disney Plus, especially if they are a fan of these franchises.
Yeah, and then they can tie in, and The Mandalorian will be coming back in, 6 months, and you can watch that as well. So why not just subscribe now?
Because I thought Disney Plus could also be its dumping ground, because Artemis Fowl, they realised they realised they had a turkey on their hands. So instead of being a box office disaster, go, oh look, new Disney Plus exclusive.
One of the reasons we need to end this pandemic is that Judi Dench's last 2 movies aren't Cats and Artemis Fowl. She needs to get something else. I'm
sure she'll get a theatre role at least. And I would say the new model with Mulan, it's the purchase. You can purchase it, but you still got to keep your Disney Plus subscription to keep hold of any films you brought. So you're still essentially you still got that rolling cost constantly. And so as I say, I'm still like my physical media, because I brought it once, barring something going wrong on with the disc or something, I've got it for life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my go-to. If I like something enough that I'm gonna, stream it over and over again. Like Parks and Recreation is one of my go-to streams on Netflix. But if it ever disappears from Netflix, I have the complete series on DVD just in case, so I can just pop one of those in, just make it safer.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share, and please like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.